With a title like this, there's a fair risk that I'll come across as a bit of a twerp. I mean, I'm not a Royal Marine, I've not won the Nobel Peace Prize, and I've never run over hot coals in bare feet and got an entire crowd to scream, "Hell yeah!" Actually, those kind of people scare me a bit. But I do know some genuinely charming and brilliant people who can be quite inspiring in person, but can miss the mark on camera. And that's because being inspiring in front of a camera is a very different beast. Let's take a look at why it's so different and what you can do to bring your inspiring off-camera game in front of the lens. There are 3 different areas that contribute equally. 1, things you should already be doing to inspire others outside of the filming process. Being inspiring isn't something you can just fake or technique your way into just for the camera. I shouldn't really have to say this, but you either got something to say or you haven't. I can't help with that bit. That's on you. If you're hoping this video is going to be like Tony Robbins, whopping your ass into shape with a voice that sounds like it's been dragged over sandpaper for 20 years, I'm sorry to disappoint you. 2, the content creation structure for being inspiring. There is a craft to how people structure their message when being inspiring, and for that, we'll be looking at the remarkable Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech to understand what that code is. Even though it wasn't for the camera, the content structure is the same. And finally 3, the techniques that can help you be the same person on camera as you are elsewhere. Here we'll cover what makes the camera experience different and how you can match it. But let's go back to August 28th, 1963 and have a look at the way Martin Luther King packaged his inspiring and inspired speech. It's an often unrecognized fact that the March on Washington was in part a show of support for the Kennedy administration. Hang in there, this is not just some random history lesson. In June of that year, the civil rights proposal had been put forward and it wasn't clear that it would pass into law. It's a much easier thing to be inspiring when you're asking people to stretch out and support an idea that is presently only just out of reach than it is to protest against something that is locked into the status quo. King could have made a speech railing against the lack of black presidents, but this was just too far off being a reality in 1963. His timely speech was about knowing which fight was closest to being won and mobilizing his rhetoric against an opening door. This was an inspiring speech because it united people in support of something new but possible, rather than simply protesting against the old and less movable. Is your message in support of or in protest against something? In case you've missed it, I'm saying it's better to be in support of. It's worth saying that's different from being in contrast to, but we can look at what that means shortly. The next thing to notice is that King radiated confidence, and although it's obvious and hackneyed to say that confidence can't be learned or taught, King's confidence and presence didn't come from a vacuum. He'd had years listening to and living in the civil rights movement, and he understood their deepest fears and highest aspirations. You could argue that he knew them better than they knew themselves. Have you listened enough? Do you know your audience better than they know themselves? That's a big ask, but often it comes down to having a good instinct for patterns and doing your best to stay in their shoes. Once he began speaking though, King was in automatic, a natural orator relying on techniques that he'd honed in the Baptist church, techniques that he'd used so regularly that they were second nature. Let's look at some of them. He used provocative metaphors to help people picture and inhabit the abstract ideas he was talking about.
But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation.
You might also notice in that quote that he reinforced important points through repetition. If it's important, you've got to repeat it. You see what I did there? I think Martin Luther King did it better. So here's another quote of his with repetition.
Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside.
I mean, don't repeat the start of every sentence, but you get the idea. Now, I mentioned contrast earlier. What I meant was protesting is different from offering a new and inspiring vision that stands in contrast to what currently exists. King used contrast to highlight injustice rather than simply protest.
Even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
Use contrast to bring real clarity and a dividing choice for your audience. He had a call to action that was crystal clear. He was speaking to the civil rights movement, but also over their heads to the wider American public, to say, now is the moment for us to be as one nation of people, and by inference, allow the passage of the civil rights proposal into law.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Like King, you have to have a point. Soaring rhetoric, inspiration, these things are all abstract if you don't make it clear what needs to happen next. That's why King's hopeful ending has become so famous, where he abandoned his script and ad-libbed a story in which he had a dream. It was the most inspiring way to end and draw attention to what he wanted to see happen in the months and years ahead. Hopeful and contrasting is, for the most part, a better way to inspire as you make your point in the call to action. The Civil Rights Bill did indeed pass into law under President Johnson the next year. Phew! It's going to be a bit of an anticlimax now. We've gone to the last section on camera techniques. Sorry about that. What are some of the practical things to understand about being on camera that can help? The first thing to understand is why cameras are so much harder than real live humans. So much of the information we get in person is the body language and energy you get from people, for better or worse. You know instantly whether or not you are connecting, and you can adjust accordingly. The anxiety of not knowing that when on camera is the first and most obvious thing that is different. Just knowing this fact can help, but you might also want to be more deliberate in the social cues you're giving off. Because cameras, like vampires, can drain your energy, and you may not even notice until you're watching yourself back. I don't think that can suck your blood, but it feels close. Take the time to become conscious about the sorts of words you put emphasis on and the moments when you pause and speed up. If you find that's making you a bit self-conscious, try doing what we call panto mode, where you do a take that is like a pantomime and record it. Make it over the top and silly, as if you're presenting to kids. This is a great exercise to do from time to time anyway, because it's always surprising just how much effort you need to put in on camera to appear over the top and silly. Use what you can see in the panto take and adjust your level of projection to whatever is appropriate, but don't lose that spark of energy the panto mode versions always have. Next, consider a teleprompter. For most people who are aiming to inspire and motivate others, the idea of reading from a script might sound like just too much structure, stealing your spontaneity. Maybe. The opposite can also be true. Get used to writing in a chatty style for the teleprompter, and the added structure can allow you to forget about the technicals of filming or remembering lines to just concentrate on the audience you're talking to on the other side of the camera. This entire vlog has been done using a teleprompter. If you're thinking, yeah, I can tell, then fine, stick with remembering your lines. But if not, maybe it's because we're also unaware of when teleprompters are being used that it doesn't matter. You decide. We use teleprompters because we film a lot in a single session and we're generally not doing motivational type content, but having got used to it, it's way better. And finally, a simple trick given to us by professional speaking coach Mark Thomas to unlock your jaw before you start. Mark talks about bringing an apple out of your throat and opening your mouth wide enough so that it unlocks your jaw. This is a subconscious hack that gives you permission to enunciate confidently. Don't ask me how or why it works, but it does. If you found that helpful, then you're in the right place to grow your business and your channel, because we publish 3 videos like this every week to show you all the things that we've been doing all the way from zero, zilch, nothing, nada. That's right, we've deliberately come from 0 subscribers and one of the most competitive subjects on YouTube to prove the habits and knowledge that can grow any channel. Why not join the tribe? We're all small creators here, together at last.